Merry Christmas Eve. Can't be mad at that. Wow. John Doss.
Happy early birthday, Hanford Dixon. Okay. Somehow that looked worse than I even thought possible.
What did you expect? I mean, it's hard to imagine that.
Camryn's frozen.
Oh, no.
Cam, you frozen?
We good?
You're back.
We're back.
Yeah, I mean, it's cold. It's really cold. You parked your car along the lake. You walked into the stadium. It is brutal out there for anybody who hasn't left the house. I can't imagine being out there and playing in it. And, they look cold. Like everybody looks frigid. Like nobody looks comfortable, completely comfortable. And obviously the conditions have played a role in the game so far. Amari Cooper slipping in the end zone, that cost the Browns a touchdown. The good news is, Cam, they're winning.
That's all you can ask for. If you had told me that they would have 10 points at halftime, I don't know that I'd have believed you because I knew it was going to be a low-scoring game. I didn't know it was going to look like that. 3-and-outs, constant punts. Felt like half the first half just to get a first down for either team. But I mean, that's what's to be expected. This is the coldest regular season game in Browns franchise history. It is cold out here.
So it is the coldest.
I say that from the comfort of the press box. It is the coldest regular season. It is only second to the playoff game. And you know the game. January 19,
Chuck says
81.
I love cold weather games.
Red
Merry
Right 88.
Merry Christmas to you, Chuck. Thankfully, we don't have to play it. And I say this every time there's a weather dependent game. Just build the damn dome. Just build a dome, Camryn.
No one has an advantage in a situation like this. People like to say, the Saints, they're from the South, but half of this Browns roster is from like South Florida and the South. So it's not
you know as well as I do. When it's this cold at practice, where do they practice?
Indoors.
Yeah, this idea that the home team. Now, granted, you live in it, so maybe you are a little bit more acclimated, but the idea that the Browns are out there in these conditions practicing and they're somehow used to it, it doesn't benefit anybody. It's a drawback for everybody. I watched this game, and it's not good football, Cam. It's not good football, and from the NFL product standpoint, the NFL doesn't want this either. Yet here we are. The good news is Watson continues to look more and more like the Deshaun Watson of old. It's taken some time, but that strike that he threw to Amari Cooper on 3rd and long, or actually it was on 4th down, wasn't it? He is looking better, Cam.
He is, and I think a lot of people, I've talked about this before, a lot of people were waiting for the flip, just like a switch to be flipped, and it be like an instant thing. And how I see his progress is like a dial. You're going to turn it up. It's going to be turned up every single game he plays until he gets back to where he's at. And you're seeing it every week. He just a little bit more like himself. That scramble, that rushing, it was an easy touchdown. Great play call for him to rush in there. But that's the kind of stuff you start getting him doing those kinds of things. That's his first rushing touchdown with the Cleveland Browns. That's big. That's a big deal for him. He's getting that swagger. That's going to give him that confidence, that swagger, get him back to that elite quarterback that the Browns went out and got. That's exactly what needs to happen. And it's happening every single game, little by little. He's getting back to himself.
Somewhat aided by, really, really bad weather out there. But the Browns defense, again, this is like what we saw last year, right? Not great in the first half of the season. Second half of the season, one of the best defenses in football. And somehow they got to figure out a way to do that in the first half of the season. But once again, Cam, the defense has been really very good, save for that last drive for the Saints.
That's kind of the MO of this team. And it's kind of strange how long it took them to click because there was a lot of continuity from last season. But I mean, that's the promise, I guess, of what this roster is. And then you have to see what happens in the offseason with the staffing. But I mean, the pieces that they have, I mean, you see it out here. They're playing pretty successful defense, granted the weather situation, and that's
What
with
do you
Clowney
mean with
on the
the staffing?
sidelines. You know, there's question marks on the defensive staffing, and that's where the question marks are, and we all know it. But like games like this and situations like this, second halves of the season like this, make you wonder what's going to happen, because there is so much that you see, and the fact that they're out there and they're playing so well. Like I said, Jadeveon Clowney is sidelined. He's got a concussion, and there's still Alex Wright steps in. You've got young guys who can fill in if Clowney doesn't return. Guys like that, like they're developing that. So next year, continuity might not be exactly the same, but that's kind of what you're at the point of the season. We're looking at that. That's what the standout is. We're not really looking at the scoreboard and even though they're not out of contention, but we're looking at what's going to be the case next year. And defensively, with the players that they have, I think they're in a really good position if they can start off stronger.
Things I like to see, giving the ball to Nick Chubb, very good. Kareem Hunt, more involved in the first half than we have seen. God, Cam, it feels like the last 2 or 3 months. The question I have is who's going to have that fire coming out of the second half to not just keep themselves warm, but think about this. As cold and miserable as these guys have been the last 2 hours, they just went inside for 20 minutes. It's going to be very hard to come back out, right?
Yep.
Who's going to have that passion, and who's going to have that fire, and who's going to be least affected by the cold in the second half? That's going to be the team that wins the game, because psychologically it does play a role. And for everybody, Hanford was saying socks and jocks this morning, right? Like the weather can't play a role in your psyche. It's just unrealistic. It's unrealistic. Like, these guys are human beings too, and everybody is hurting and in pain in this kind of environment. Who wants to come out of that locker room and go win the game for the next 30 minutes? It should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, you see in between plays out there, Myles Garrett on the field doing jumping jacks, just trying to stay warm. I think he's got that right mentality. Keep moving, keep active, keep yourself warm, because he wants to make big plays, and he's out there and he's doing the thing. If they come out like that with that kind of energy, that kind of fire, like, all right, it's a mental thing. Like David Njoku going shirtless his pregame for a couple minutes, that kind of mentality to get through it. That's what you need. And it sounds like, oh yeah, best team wins, but it really does. It comes down to that mentality, and we'll see what happens. It's tough. I'll tell you, I don't want to go back outside. I'm going to stay in this press box as long as I possibly can. Yeah,
if you're watching the other scoreboards, and I had them up here, the Bengals are on top of the Patriots 22-0 right now. That helps the Browns. I mean, I know we joke about the Browns being mathematically alive. As long as Cleveland keeps winning up until possibly next week or the week after that, they're going to be mathematically alive.
Absolutely.
So just give us something to talk about next week, something to play for. And the Browns are going to have a big second half here to do it.
We'll see. We got Nick Chubb, 14 carries, maybe double that up. Kareem Hunt's got 3. He'll probably get some more.
I think by far a career high if they manage it.
Yeah, that would be huge. That would be big for him.
We've all been asking for.
And it's what we're looking. It is, and now you kind of left with no choice in these conditions. So toughen out the cold, carrying the ball, and just staying on top. That's what the second half's all about.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. Hopefully
the Browns
can be a little early Christmas present here.
We'll keep our fingers crossed. Thanks for watching, guys.